right, all right, all right. I don't. Who's that? Is that what's his name? What's that guy's name that says that?
It was on Dazed and Confused.
Something like that. But we are live. We are going to talk. There you go. Thank you. I should probably know who that is if I'm going to use this stuff. But we are out here in the streets. Lake of the Ozarks, stop number 1, presented by Eco Fishing Shop. It is the first event of the Elite Series. I don't know about you, Trey, but I'm stoked.
I'm excited, dude. Like you don't want to look at my living room right now. Actually, I've done better. Like I actually did all my tackle prep last night. I might redo it all because we have some juice coming fresh in from the lemon squeezed fresh juice stand tonight. So I'm excited, man. And yeah, it's just been a really good week. So, tournaments every month, man, is something I really look forward to. It gives me something to look forward to. I love looking at my calendar. I just love it, dude.
Yeah, I made I got one of those big wall calendars and I made that, and Sarah gave me a hard time. She's like, there's stuff on there every weekend. I'm like, I'm not fishing them all. I wish, but just about every weekend between, here in Arkansas and Camo and all these other groups, we can probably fish just about every weekend at Derby. So it'll definitely be interesting, but no, I'm excited. Trey, you know JP or Jonathan as well. We're gonna call him JP, and I'll stay as Jonathan. But JP pretty well.
I know him well enough. I followed him on Facebook for a while. He's big in F. He's a big promoter of FX, and some really cool things with me has been going on with FX. So I've been able to step into a different role there, and it just kind of gives me a little more exposure to the anglers for FX. But man, I just follow him on Facebook. He's a local down at Lake of the Ozarks, and he's somebody that I had always seen, when different bass clubs were posting championships or just weigh-ins or stuff like that. He was always up top. He was number 1. Definitely always in the top 5. So he's somebody that just always stood out to me. And I just like, man, I'd really like to get to know that guy. And, he seemed really genuine. So.
Well, let's get him in here. Let's get it going. JP, man, thanks for coming on here. Thanks for making time out of your schedule for us, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
JP, just talk about yourself. Tell us about who you are, what you do, kind of what you got going on right now, and just kind of for those that may not know you yet.
Yeah, so I live here in Camdenton at Lake of the Ozarks. My wife and I, we both do real estate. This year I've kind of not stepped away from real estate, but more focusing on the professional side of fishing. Started doing the opens this year. Still going to do, the smaller stuff, the FLs, some of the Toyota series, and then really just any tournament I can get into whenever the time lets me. But I've been fishing, tournament-wise about 15, 17 years, somewhere in there, and falling in love with it.
How did you? How did you get into fishing? And was it was your dad like always fishing? Or did you get into it through like buddies or high school, or what kind of got it going for you, man?
Yeah, it was actually my mom's ex-boyfriend when I used to live out in North Carolina. Kind of got me into fishing itself. But then when I moved here, my dad is military, and that's why I'm here in this area. I have a buddy that seen me out on the water. He was fishing a small bass club called Tri-County out of St. Robert, and introduced me to come and fish with them guys, and did it for about 10 years. And then just kind of expanded from there. Just fell in love with the tournament scene.
So when you were fishing Tri-County, what was your home lake there? What was that?
That'd be Lake of the Ozarks.
Lake of the Ozarks?
About 45, 50 minutes from Lake of the Ozarks. But the cool thing with that club is we fished a new lake every month within the state of Missouri. So it was just a lot of, getting to know these lakes. And, at first I did it as a co-angler. Anybody that's just getting into this, that's a good route to go. Jump in a club, jump in the back of a boat and just learn. And finally bought my own boat and started going to work.
And, you have some accomplishments when it comes to fishing. You say, you started as a co-angler and brought it up right now, but, just reading a couple of them, you took top finishes in events like BFL, Joe Bass, multiple Angler of the Year and championships. Every time I see you on some Facebook post about a tournament at Lake of the Ozarks, you are always in the money. Do you feel like a lot of people say that a lot of that is instinctual, and some people are just really born to fish and they just have a kind of knack for it, but then time on the water really just kind of heightens that? Have you always kind of had that kind of sixth sense where you just kind of feel something and go with it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you don't have that, you're not going to make it out there. Like, you have to make adjustments all day, every day. I mean, you think you can have something figured out one day, and the next day, within the first hour or two, things have changed, and you have to make those adjustments. This past year was probably one of my best years. Fishing these night tournaments, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night. We were fishing almost every night during the week. But sometimes there's a rotation of, your spots to hit, right before dark, hit them after dark. And we were just on a roll. I mean, just once you get into that rotation, you start following the fish. And if you're fishing all year long, you can stay with them,
And you fish a lot in winter too, don't you?
Winter, you said?
Yeah. Do you fish a lot in the winter? Do you do the winter series?
I don't stop. I mean, if there's not ice on the water, I'm out there.
Nice.
Before we get too far on this, guys, if you guys go over to our Facebook page, the MOYAK Bass Trail Series, of course, we've got it live streaming on there, YouTube and Instagram as well. But if you are on there and you comment on there, we'll actually pop it up here on the screen. So if you guys have any questions that you may want to ask JP, make sure to go over to our Facebook page. It's not the group page. It's the MOYAK Bass Trail Series page. Pop in any questions. We can pop them up the screen. JP can answer those. We just talked before we got on here. And Trey, remind me, we'll come back to that giveaway just a second. But kind of jokingly, do you want to just give us on the scoop on like what Mason's throwing? Because I know you just talked to him and where he's going.
Yeah, like tell us where Mason's going to be, what's he throwing, and like where he going to be at.
Yeah.
No. But one thing for real though, like, one thing I want, and I'll say that real quick, Jonathan, but I want you guys that are on here tonight, listen, it's kind of going to be a softball, but the kicker to this is, guys, if you can see this, it's a JDM, actually Berkeley 3/8 spinnerbait. It's a deck spinnerbait, so it's really cool. I got a couple of them. I got them from a JDM package price. So if you guys are at awards and signed up for this event and you get the trivia question right tonight, I will be bringing that to awards and it will be yours. But the one thing that I want to talk about first before we get into current, like what's the lake currently doing? Historically, from Lake of the Ozarks, from the winter to the spring to the summer to the fall, what's the attitude of the lake? Like, do the bass hang out more at the dam during this time of year? Do they hang out up in the river this time of year? Now, I know these fish may or may not, and I'm still new to this, travel to these areas, but it seems like they're just more active in that area at different times of the year because then fish stay there all year long, right? Just a matter of if they're eating or not. So can you just walk us through the 4 seasons and like what side of the lake is typically better in them seasons and how that works just fundamentally across maybe all the lakes here in Missouri?
Yeah, so I'll start with like the wintertime. Seems like Toll Bridge to the dam area is your stronger area of the lake. It's typically warmer in the winter. So I would say Toll Bridge to the dam. And, a lot of people have this theory of wintertime fishing is all bluff or main lake point stuff. I don't know how many big fish I've caught staging just outside of like spawning areas in the winter, like and shallow. I mean, we've caught them as shallow as 6-8 foot of water, on A-rigs, jerk baits. I think I just had a 7-pounder. It was probably about a month ago. And I mean, it was close to a main lake area, but it was shallow. I mean, it was a shallow flat, like they had just moved into there. It was a warmer day. So that would be my area for the winter. And then as we move into the spring, obviously your river arms are going to warm fastest. So, your glaze, the Little Niangua, the Niangua up the river, all of that is going to start warming a lot faster than the rest of the lake. So you're going to have a lot more baits in play. And then as you transition into the summer, or spawn even, spawn into the summer, they're going to start moving more out to the point, start feeding up before summer once the spawn's over. And then basically they're going to be looking for their offshore brush for the summertime, and they'll be there all the way up until fall. And then they'll start transitioning back into the creeks again.
As far as like, if anybody that's been on the lake in the last few weeks, everyone's been talking about the shad kill.
Yep.
It seems like, that happened right after, the ice, melted and all that. And, now this week it's been crazy warm. It's been a little bit windy. It's going to be windy this weekend. Do you think that really plays a factor into these fish? Everyone says it's tough and it's that. And what would your like your plan of action be in regards to like that shad kill?
So don't let the warm weather fool you. It's too soon. I think we're still a couple weeks from fish really moving up strong. I think, me personally, if I was going to be in this, I would be in the more stable part of the lake. They just dropped it. I think we're down 7 foot right now from normal pull. So it's pulled, I think, a lot of these fish out to maybe that staging brush or the staging rock transitions that lead into the spawning pockets. So that's kind of the things I would be focusing on. Right before the freeze, we were on a pretty good pattern of finding these fish stacked up on the last channel banks, secondaries towards the back of the creeks. I believe if you can find those certain areas, when we were doing well a couple weeks ago before the freeze, we would just run a milk run of 8 to 10 brush piles and channel banks that we knew had the fish. And at some point throughout the day, those fish are going to fire. From what I've been hearing, it seems to be a morning deal right now. Most guys are catching their fish by 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and then it's pretty much done. So that would be and I would be fishing from the toll bridge to maybe the 4 or 5 mile marker.
Go ahead. Let's talk.
Can you guys hear this messenger? I'm sorry. Can you guys hear this messenger thing going off on my computer? It's like ding ding. Okay, good.
No. Let's switch over. Let's talk about, kind of talked about areas where you would go. Of course, with us kayakers, we're definitely limited to, where we can go and where we're a lot of us try and pick maybe, a larger creek or something like that. But switching over to like baits and whatnot. You said you were on the water today. What would you, we're going to have guys that have been fishing for, their whole life. We'll have guys that this may be their first tournament. What are you seeing and what are you recommending right now?
Oh, number one bait in my hand for that would be a jerk bait. These fish are just sluggish. They don't want to move. I know the water is going to trick everybody thinking, oh, let's throw a spinner bait and the crank bait, and just wind it down the bank. Will it catch fish? Yeah, I'm sure somebody will catch a couple doing it. But I'm going to go slow and pick every pile. Like, if with you guys not being able to go anywhere, obviously you want to pick a creek apart, find every brush pile that you can find that has fish on them. If you've got live scope or side scan, to go and mark all the brush piles in a creek. And I would find a rotation and just keep hitting those brush piles all day long until I think you guys, you don't have a 5 fish limit. It's yeah,
we do. So we go by inches, so it's a little bit different. So like we it's our best 5 fish. We take pictures of them, of course, and then release them. So the nice part about it, like ours, is like on our app that we use, it keeps your best 5 no matter what. So like you don't have to worry about that. You can more worried about your smallest fish and whether you need to take a photo of that 6th or 7th fish or whatever. So like we don't like we do have 5, but it's just a little bit different. So we don't have to worry about live welling them and all that stuff.
Right. And is there a size limit?
Not on this one, but the way that it usually goes is like we'll put a minimum size limit, and then it'll be just the worst conditions ever, and then it'll be like you're begging for like a 12-inch. So like I said, with us being able to release them, we could submit any fish that we want.
Right.
I have literally submitted a 6-inch fish.
Really?
And I was happy about it.
Well, you might be happy with it this weekend.
Okay. All right.
So diving into that jerk bait, if they're not, if you're not having success with that, are you moving over towards like, bottom bouncing bait, slower stuff? Are you going to move, we talked about it a little before we got on here. Are you going to, look at a jig head minnow? Like what are you thinking right now?
Yeah, there are fish that are going to slide up with this warmer weather. So if the jerk bait, are you guys allowed to use A-rigs? Yep. So I would definitely have a jerkbait and an A-rig is probably my two baits I'd be throwing mostly. Then since you don't have a size limit, I would be going with something finesse, a small ball head jig, maybe a small shaky head. I would find the shallow brush near those spawning areas, just outside of them, where you find some transition banks. That would be my game plan right now.
That's good stuff.
So I got a question here. We'll bring it up. And like I said, so this might be, I don't know what it's going to equate to you. Maybe you just tell us some pounds. So like for 5 fish, we go by inches. Steve Billings is asking like, hey, what do you think it's going to take to win in inches? So I've kind of got, I've got a conversion deal here and it's not exact. So like, a 19 or 20 inch fish is really good for us. They're anywhere from, 3 to almost 4 pounds. What are you thinking as far as maybe just poundage, and then we can kind of maybe convert that?
Yeah, I would say on average, what I'm seeing here right now is about 14 to 16 pounds is winning tournaments for bass guys, or for the bass boat guys. For you guys, I'm going to say probably around 12 pounds would be a good bag of 5.
So what is that? 12 divided by 5.
It's about 80 piece.
So we need an average of 15 to 17 inch fish. So anywhere from, 15 inches is about a pound or 2 pounds, 17 inches is about almost 3. So I think anybody in that, 15 to 16, 17 mark, I think they're going to be having a good day. A lot of guys, what happens, they'll catch that 19, 20, and then they'll, stack that up with a bunch of smaller fish. But at 12 pounds, that's kind of crazy.
And I can tell you, if you find spotted bass right now,
that's what I was going to say.
You better stay there because there's probably a load of them. I mean, there was times right before the freeze where we were throwing an A-rig over like a small brush pile, and all of a sudden you'd see like 20 fish come out of it, and it would be a 12, 13-inch spot. But, I mean, it was almost every cast over that certain brush pile, and that's the size fish that's in there. But for you guys, it could be, a really good thing.
To dive in that a little bit deeper, how do you find, like, what is so the difference between, let's say, largemouth and spots? So I'm going out to target spots. Am I looking in different areas and I'm looking for largemouth? Like, do spots hang out in different areas?
In the summer, I can say yes. In the fall, I've found that there is a pattern you can run for that. But right now, I have not figured out what the actual pattern is for the spotted bass. This was just a random gut brush pile that just had nothing but spots on it.
What's a gut brush pile mean?
Like the back of a creek, like 3/4 of the way back in a creek where that last 20 foot of water comes to the back of the creek. That brush pile sitting in the very center of the creek. And for some reason, that one that we had found, it was loaded with spots.
Right down the gut.
Yep. Is there usually always a gut pile in usually a lot of the creeks? Is it put there on purpose? Yeah.
Yeah. Especially all your major creeks.
I'm going gut hunting.
They don't call them ditch pickles for nothing, buddy.
I was wondering that. What's your biggest bag on Lake of the Ozarks? What's the biggest bag you ever took to the scale?
Right at 20, a little over 22 pounds. But that was a night tournament. And I caught a 901 about 3 years ago in a night tournament. It was just a freak deal. 5 minutes to go in the tournament, threw in a brush pile and set the hook. And I'm like, oh, I think I got a 5-pounder, My dad's getting the net and it come up next to the boat and we get it in the net. We're both looking at each other like, what the hell just happened? I mean, it was just unbelievable.
Why do they draw the lake down? What's the point in that? And what does that do to the fish? I know you kind of, so like, why did they do that? And then why, like, what does that do to the fish?
So they do it because the docks need servicing with the seawalls and, and also we have, the spring rains are coming. So they want to be ready to be able to put a lot of water into this lake whenever it comes time, plus do all their seawall maintenance. And for me, what I've found over the last couple of years with the drawdown is a lot of these fish will pull up onto those 45-degree banks, and the secondary points that are a little steeper, and it just puts them on, they want to be able to escape fast. So, because what I seen today, I was going down the banks, and it seemed like every time I got to a steeper bank, I started seeing a bunch of fish up on the bank. Within the first 5 feet of the bank, they were actually up kind of shallow. But we had a warm day, not a lot of wind. So I would just say it with the drawdown and how fast they did it. I think it's just going to pull those fish onto those little bit steeper banks or pull them out off of the points into a little bit deeper brush.
So this question might sound really elementary, but we have, and myself included, some people on here that are really new to bass fishing. They're learning it, and they're watching YouTube videos, got into kayak fishing because it is a little more affordable. So can you explain what a secondary point is, what that means, and then like what is an example of a 45-degree angle bank?
Yeah, so if you just take any major creek or any smaller creek even, you're going to have, when you're going into it, you're going to have pockets. All the way down one side or the other. When you come out of that pocket, there's going to be like a rounded point. So that is considered a secondary point. Now, as soon as you go into the creek, the first ones on both sides, those are going to be your main lake points. A lot of these fish, obviously, we're getting closer to the spawn. They know where they need to be to go spawn. So they're going to be staging on those rock transitions, brush piles, just outside of these spawning areas. I find them there year round. I mean, I'm sorry, not year round, but throughout the winter, I find those fish, they'll almost stage there all winter long sometimes. And then as soon as the spring comes, we'll start seeing them sliding up into those pockets. And then a 45-degree. So if you look at your topo map, you'll see where the channel swings up against the bank. Right where it hits the bank is going to be your steeper bank, and that's generally going to be your 45-degree banks to look for.
So you can identify 45-degree angle banks by a channel swing.
By channel swings, yep.
We've got a question from Josh here. He said, "What is the go-to color of bait for spring on Lake of the Ozarks?"
So I'll just go through. I'll go through your main baits, like a rock crawler, wigglewort. I'm looking for something that if I'm throwing that, generally I'm looking for color in the water. Back in a river arm. So I want something that's going to be orange, a little bit of red in it, or solid of each of those. Spinner bait, I'm looking at white and chartreuse, throwing a Colorado blade with maybe a little red kicker blade on it. Your jerk baits, clear water, I'm going to go more of like your pro blue, your clear style baits. And then if you get up into the river arms where it's a little dirtier, I might throw white, something that's more of a solid color so they can see it in the dirty water. Jig colors, I mean, there's only two jigs I throw really, a green pumpkin and a black and blue. I keep it pretty simple.
They cut us off. They cut us off, JD. He was giving us too much juice.
Maybe
LOZ Mafia. The LOZ Mafia just hacked into our network system.
Hopefully it's just timed out. We'll give him a second to get back on here. A key point that Josh wanted me to talk about real quick is so this year, MOYAK, we moved over to a new AOI system, which is it's kind of cool. Troy Yankees worked really hard on it. We really appreciate it. So basically, what's the biggest change from last year is like if an angler doesn't submit a fish, basically for that day they get a 0. They don't get points. Tourney X typically, they'll go through the the top, whatever inches is leading it, and then for those guys after, I think it typically goes by alphabetical order by last name. So just keep that in mind. That'll change up points a lot this year. I know last year, there was like events where I'm like, I need to sign up because I just need the points. Well, that's not gonna really help you. So you still got to be able to catch fish and whatnot. So if you do, catch that 6-incher, that 8-incher, probably want to put it on the board. Especially if it's fishing rough, that kind of adds up. JP, now that you're back, I've got another question for you, man. If you were in a kayak this weekend, where would you fish?
He's coming just straight. He's coming with a mouth punch.
Man, dude's like, give me all the juice and then some.
You just want him to go with you, Larson? He'll probably meet you at the ramp, bro. Damn.
So in the Yak tournament this weekend, I would probably put in Johnny Ben, and I would pick either. So when you come out on it, you make a left, and there's 2 big creeks there. I would probably pick 1 or 2 of those creeks and find every brush pile I could in practice, and I would just rotate through every single one of them as many times as I could this weekend.
And quite frankly, like Shawnee Bend, with it being on the south side of that main lake channel, I mean, that might not be a bad play. I mean, you might like getting over to the next few pockets, east of there, or west of there, excuse me. It might get a little sketchy to get into there, but you might be able to get, with that wind coming out of the southwest, that might be a play. I know if it was me, I think I'd be avoiding like, Kaufman Beach. That place might be a nightmare to launch in a kayak because that wind's going to be pounding that area. So yeah, I mean that's not a bad play at all. And I think the hard, and we do Eco Fishing Shop, we do a Big Bass 250 every year, and basically it's one fish pays out 10 grand, and then we pay out the top 5. So it's one fish for 10 grand. It's always tricky with Lake of the Ozarks because there's so many different pay ramps. There's only so many public ramps. There's a lot of nooks and crannies that people can get into and find areas and stuff like that. But yeah, to me, honestly, like that's a great option. I know a lot of guys will be in Lynn Creek. Lynn Creek might play as well. Of course, they got that pay ramp in the very back because that creek, you can stay on that west side and probably stay out of that wind. But yeah, that might not be a bad play at all.
And another thing, I mean, and I would just encourage this. So you can count on pretty much every place at Lake of the Ozarks that has a place on the water. They probably have a ramp, right? I'm just going to throw this out there. And if you just sit down one day and call all these places and be like, hey, you got pay ramp? Well, actually, we do. Hey, maybe they don't have one, but they've been thinking about starting one up, and maybe they're going to start with you, right? People want to make money. So put in the work, man. Put in the work and just pull up Google Maps and start calling these places. And you're going to find your own little spot. So it just takes a little bit of communication.
Yeah.
Yes.
JP, I think you do guide service on the lake. Is that correct?
I do. I do a whole lot just because with my tournament schedules, real estate, it's kind of a side gig that I do. But yeah, I mean, if anybody's looking to get out, learn how to use a live scope, learn their electronics, go out and crappie fish. When bass fishing's this tough, I mean, I would take somebody if they really, really want to go learn and try to figure it out. But, most people jumping in a boat are not experienced enough to go and, and I mean, I can teach them, but it's going to be a rough day. And I just hate putting people on a rough day of fishing, whenever they're there to have fun and enjoy it.
Do you do any spoon billing? Do you do any spoon bill guides?
I spoon bill for 5 or 6 years. I just don't enjoy doing it anymore. And plus,
do you like eating them?
No, actually, I don't. I don't know if I've just had it too many different ways and didn't like it. But it'll tear a bass boat up too because you got to haul them in the boat, and I mean it just makes a mess.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
When I first started working here, the guy I worked with, Travis, his buddy went spoonbill fishing, and they got a spoonbill, and they ended up smoking that spoonbill.
Yep.
And that was like fall apart, like good. Like I've never had it since then, but I was like, thoroughly impressed. So, but I'm sure if you've had, it's probably, worse than crappie. If you've had so much, you've had so much. So, but it's crazy what, how guys are using live scope now to find these fish as well.
Yep. I actually caught a couple 2 years ago with the live scope. I was like, I'm going to try it, and sure enough, you just reel it right over their back and snag them with the live scope.
So another question. So talking about just maybe getting into a little Gerald Swindle here, but like I want to talk about maybe some anglers that have had an influence on you, maybe at Lake of the Ozarks and just nationally at that. But can you tell us for, guys that are out there and it's, they've been fishing, it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. There's 3 hours left. They have no fish on the board. How do you adjust in that point? And remember, like we're in a kayak, so we can't fly. We can't just go down the lake hitting main lake points. We got to sit there and basically either load up our stuff and go to a different ramp, or we got to continue fishing in an area that we haven't caught any fish at in the last 5 hours. How would you navigate that? And how do you navigate that in a bass boat?
Man, that's tough, with us being able to run to a new area of the lake or, whatnot, it's a lot more difficult. I mean, really, it's just going to be downsizing your baits would be the number one thing I would do. Just go more finesse. I'm not going to lie. Like, I've heard guys are targeting bass with crappie jigs right now because of how tough the bite is, just to get a bite. So downsizing, instead of throwing a 110 jerk bait, throw a 90 size jerk bait. It's a mental grind because at some point, there's been many tournaments where we've caught our limit in the last hour of the tournament, and it's just a mental grind of staying, fishing the brush piles you found or, banks that you found fish on. And, it's not going to work every time, you can strike out, but in your situation, you almost you have to grind it out, try different, presentations. I'll give you an example. This weekend, I fished a tournament at Palmy, and I had one bite the entire single day. It was a 576. Ended up taking big bass of the tournament. Come into the weigh-in, it was super tough on everybody. There was one team that ended up cracking them, and it had 17.5 pounds. Well, we got to talking with them, and he let me in on a little secret of what they were doing to get their fish to bite. Because we had followers and, had fish looking at our bait, just would not eat it. So what he was saying is, so we would throw our jerk bait over the brush piles, bring a fish out with us. And in the past, usually you could let it sit, let it slowly sink down past their face and just kind of twitch along real slow until they ate it. They just weren't having it. So what he was doing, he did a different presentation that I didn't try. And he would just pretty much sit over top of that fish. And once it got nosed up to the bait, he was just snapping his rod. And it was just triggering those fish to fire. And it's like there's always something that's going to be different, that's going to get these fish to fire up and bite. You just have to figure out what they want.
Do you always have a drop shot tied on somewhere in your boat?
Pretty much from spring till fall. Yeah, I do. That and, I throw a small, tiny shaky head a lot, whenever the bite's super tough or you just need another keeper in the boat, just to get that keeper, especially if it's late in the day and you just need one more. 1 pound goes a lot more than no pound, at the end of the day.
Yeah, 5 fish go a lot more than 4. I learned that one the hard way. Who is somebody you've always looked up to, man, when it comes to – so I grew up in Gravois, and I remember sitting on a dock down at Wolf Harbor one day, and I was like probably 7, and I was sitting on a dock, and I told this story before where I looked up. I was fishing for bluegill underneath the dock, and there was this dude in this Ranger jacket and this decked out bass boat just flipping bushes. In my mind, I want to say it was Guido. Was it Guido? I have no idea. But my grandpa owned a really nice, really cool, famous barbecue restaurant there in Gravois called Nash's Hickory Pit. So we always had like bass guys coming in there. So Guido Hibden and Dion Hibden is somebody that I always looked up to. And so who's like your fishing hero? Who's somebody that you follow and you like?
So, I was from Waynesville, St. Robert. I really didn't know the fishing community here at the lake too well growing up. And, my professional side of like what I loved was, Mike Iaconelli back when he was just crazy, at first. Like I thought he was pretty cool. I thought
it kind of looked like him.
Funny to watch. And, but I'd say my favorite nowadays is probably Jason Christie. Just that guy is one of the best power fishermen on this planet. I actually went down to Grand Lake and got to watch him during one of the classics and, went out on the boat and followed him around to watch him. And the dude's unbelievable. I mean, just picks every little piece of cover apart, doesn't miss a beat.
He just picked up a win this weekend on spinnerbait, didn't he?
On the spinnerbait, yeah, at Santine Cooper.
Yeah. Smashed him.
Yep.
But you're surrounded by just great. You got, Rankemeyer. I mean, you got Culberson. You got this guy who I love and absolutely in love with. That's Dirk, who is just the dude is just like a bass scientist for real. Like if you ever try to talk fishing with him, you don't even understand it because he's so much stuff is going through his mind but that dude, like to me, that dude is like, he could have been something and is something like phenomenally great, man. If he focused on fishing like that, man, I love talking to him. Yeah. I mean, I love his jigs. So,
and I'll tell you, another one growing up was Marcus Sikora and Bill Davenport. They've been such a big role model here at the lake. Like they're always dominant on this lake, and just watching their success. It's pretty cool. Just to be around all these guys here at the lake. You got Andy.
So you're married, you got kids.
Yep, married, 17-year-old boy and an 8-year-old daughter.
Awesome.
Yeah, just loving the lake life, man.
So what's your plans? Where do you see yourself in 10 years when it comes to fishing? What would you like to see?
Well, I'd like to, if I just started out on the Bass Opens this year, rookie season, lot to learn. I'm still learning. I spend a lot of time on the water. I learn something every time I'm out. Obviously I'd love to be a top dog in the Bass Opens, maybe even make a classic one of these days, maybe get a chance at the elites. That would be the ultimate goal.
So you're all in.
Oh, I'm all in. I'm not quitting.
Awesome.
There.
I just have
JP,
one more
man.
question, Jonathan.
Go ahead, Trey.
My last one is, and I think you answered this, and I don't know how much time we have left. We don't want to keep you too long, but so you're going out. You told us where you would be. So you got 5 rods. Let's say you're only taking 5 rods with you on your kayak. Well, what are you taking?
Well, I've said the jerkbait, an A-rig. I'm gonna have some kind of wiggle wart or a rock crawler on the boat. I'll have a jig. Probably a shaky head of some sort, like some small, like 5-inch shaky head, something small, finesse, just trying to get a bite. And I might even have a little small Kitech, like a 3-inch or a 2.8, just because it's tough. I mean, you're just looking for 5 bites right now.
You heard it here.
JP, man, seriously, really appreciate you coming on with us. And Trey, let's wrap this up.
You want to give a shout out to any of your sponsors?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're both with FX Custom Rods. Appreciate what they do for us. Anglers Port Marina, Rogue Custom Apparel. If you ever need a jersey, they make awesome jerseys. Who else we got? Chompers, Apex Tackle. Who else we got? And Freedom Land Title. That's one of my new sponsors this year. So yeah, I appreciate what they do, and obviously the place of my business is Matt Smith Real Estate Group. So if anybody's out looking for a home, I can definitely point you in the right direction or help you myself.
I want to check out that Chompers Nico Rama worm.
Yeah,
that thing looks decent. I use the old Mike Webb special. I'm always on that Chompers drop shot worm, that ruby or that BP laminate. That's I might just put on a little BP laminate on jig head this weekend and just work a little bitty Chompers drop shot worm.
Yep. Oh, and I'm sorry. Another one is Glover Lures. He makes glide baits, does custom painting. So Matt Glover, if anybody needs any custom paint work, he's amazing.
That's awesome. Got 42 guys signed up for this weekend, ready to rock and roll for our first event. Trey, let's wrap this up with a giveaway. Go ahead and ask a question that JP talked about and see if I can't pay attention to all the comments and see if we can't get a winner.
All right. I had two, but I think I narrowed it down to one. Can you tell me how big that bass was JP caught at that night tournament? It was his PB.
Come on, people.
Come on, man. Y'all got to be listening. Hey, they heard the juice and tuned out. They just wanted to know where you.
Yeah, they're
said Shawnee Ben and they checked out. They left.
They're all in the garage
right now.
Retying stuff. Chris Wilson. He said it was 9 pounds. Chris Wilson, congrats, buddy. So be here this weekend. Find Trey. He'll hook you up. But seriously, JP, appreciate you coming on, taking time into your schedule. If you want to come dabble in the kayak scene, just let us know, man. We'll take care of you, man. The kayak, mine goes pretty fast. It doesn't zoom like yours, but I think you might enjoy it, man.
Yeah,
you got to catch 10 to our 5, so it's going to be tough for you.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
No, absolutely appreciate it, man. Well, man, that's all I got. See you guys this weekend. Again, we'll be checking in the Eco Fishing Shop here in Camdenton, Missouri. Parking might be a little bit tight, but you guys will figure it out. Trey, what else you got, man?
That's it, man. I'm excited. Guys, be safe this weekend. Use good judgment. Fish the wind and just be safe.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much, and we are out of here.